Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. We are not done with the drama just yet. Parasite has given his thoughts on Vegas Prolute, saying that it's not just that he's uncomfortable in this game, not just that he isn't quite adjusted to the state of Modern Warfare 2. The real problem is that he straight up isn't good enough to be on the current state of this Vegas roster if they want to actually deliver the goods. Prolute then comes to the replies, not happy about Parasite's comments, but who is right at the end of the day, especially after Prolute's good stint with OpTic during last season. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to dive into. First of all, just wanted to say, this is in fairness going into the major. This could change, but CDL Sportsbook have killed it with their fantasy team. I don't know how you guys are stacking up here. I'm 6th on the rankings. Not too bad. If Simp had a better stage than he did, I would have actually kind of been frying, but turns out that wasn't the case. Brack, I think, was a pretty decent pick at the end of the day. Still, there's the major to come here, but yeah, I don't believe you guys can enter quite yet for Major 2, but after Major 1 concludes, relatively shortly after, we should have everything sorted out for fantasy for Major 2 coming up soon after. So definitely stay tuned for that one. Also, quick note on the Esports Awards, because I believe that this is happening tonight, and some of them were announced yesterday, and I believe there's more to come tonight as well. Esports Engine won the kind of supporting service of the year. Don't believe COD did much else in yesterday's one. Tonight, though, there's more nominations. There's like, I think chances up for Color Caster of the Year and stuff like this. Some players are getting involved as well as they usually do. So, I thought it was kind of cool to see. We'll see at the end of the day if COD does anything this year, because certainly Call of Duty Vanguard is not going to win the Esports Game of the Year. There's no doubt about that one. Major 1, quick note as well on the rewards for watching Major 1, as we see the double XP tokens, which is kind of one of the big things that people tend to tune in for here. But yeah, you've got a pistol blueprint, so I mean, I don't know, not exactly what I'm going to be going for. To be honest, I don't even have the games. I don't even know why I'm commenting on that. It doesn't matter to me. But these are the rewards if you guys were interested in seeing what you can get. But also to note here, the peak viewership for week 2 peaked at almost 150,000 viewers again. I think week 1 was at what, 192,000 or something, and I believe it got to 160k for a non-OpTic game in week 1, but still almost 110,000 for a non-OpTic match in week 2. Of course, OpTic are killing the viewership as usual, but I mean, still, it's interesting, right? Like, it's not like OpTic viewership is crazy higher than the other teams. I mean, it's obviously significantly higher, but in terms of percentage terms, like last season for a decent league match, we would get 40,000 viewers, and maybe you'd get 80,000 with OpTic for a very spicy good one, and that would be 40,000 more usually for the OpTic game, but as a percentage, that would double the viewership, whereas at the moment, we're getting, let's say, 110,000 for a non-OpTic game, and then another 30, 35, 40,000 for the OpTic games. So, it's still the same additional people that come in for OpTic, but there's, as it stands, way more people that are just watching the regular games anyway, which I think is good, and I think, honestly, like, I don't want to give Joe Secret any credit, but the fact that Modern Warfare 2 is a very popular game with the more casual players means that there probably are a significant number of just, new people to Call of Duty Esports that are tuning in to the matches on Twitch just to see how the game is played at the highest level, which is one of the best things about starting the league early on, and I'm sure some of those guys will be converted into fans in the future, or already have. So here we go, these are the kind of numbers, but still, like, comparing this to week 1 is still pretty good, right? Okay, week 1 peaked at a higher numbers, but still, for week 2 of the league, and it's always going to drop off a bit, but these numbers I think are still very respectable for week 2, and I'm sure the major is going to do even better than this. Also, quick note here on Doug St. Martin, because tomorrow we're going to get the play-in for the challenger side of things, but in the end, Doug and his team were 1 match short of qualifying for that play-in, and they played the cup this past weekend and came top 16. Says he's so sick and tired of inconsistent performances. This is going to get fixed, he says. And he's even talking about the fact that these results and numbers don't really mean that much, right? Because even Doug says here, the fact that Drazah placed top 32 in a cup, he went on to win champs last season. Insight and Scrappy at one point were top 64 as well. They went on to win a major. So that's the thing. We even saw, like, when Methods and even Callisto were down there in challenges, they wouldn't necessarily get crazy good results down there, but converting that onto the Pro League teams is often, can be easy for some of these guys than even being there grinding in challenges. So I don't know, it's an interesting point from Doug, but it's also relevant to what we're about to discuss, which is about Prolute and his recent move to the Vegas Legion and whether this is going to be a long-term solution for this team. It's kind of funny, really, the fact that Theory says here that TJ said they just straight up, photoshopped him onto the mannequin's body that looks absolutely terrible on the CDL broadcast. It's kind of funny, really, because like this guy right here, Dan, does a phenomenal job in doing the Photoshop, but clearly the CDL can't do a job anywhere near like this. They've got that absolute burger thing that's up on this broadcast. But speaking of Vegas Legion, Parasite was giving his thoughts on Prolute and the state of the Vegas Legion team. People were asking him, okay, is Prolute just not so comfortable on this game right now? What do you guys think is his issue? And Parasite just straight up says, yeah, this guy isn't good enough, right? He's not really a Pro League caliber player.
Oh, You think Prolute is uncomfortable in the squad or just not his game? Prolute's just not that good of a player. Unfortunately. It's just a fact. He's underperformed on most of his teams. He's just not the best. My bad. I mean, dude, it's the truth. He's not the most talented player. He's good fundamentals. He's pretty good search, but from an individual perspective, there's just better players out there.
So what do you guys think about this perspective from Parasite, right? Because look, I know that a lot of people like to say it, and Zuma often is, understandably Zuma's going to say stuff like this, but usually when a team or player is underperforming, Zuma and others will kind of be on the flank stating things like, well, you know, they're just not so comfortable right now, the team just isn't clicking and stuff like this, or they're just not clicking with this meta or whatever. Whereas, you know, maybe Parasite's right. The reality is for some players, they're just straight up not good enough for, you know, to be in that conversation. Now, last season, of course, Prolute was in the kind of challenger side, and he was brought in for iLLeY, a good friend of iLLeY and the OpTic team. Did a great job, I thought, subbing in for iLLeY. Looked fantastic in their first few series. There was even conversations as to whether OpTic were better with Prolute than they were with iLLeY. I think the reality was that iLLeY's kind of role on the team and the way they'd set up that OpTic team at the start of last season was so good that realistically anyone could sub in that could actually play that role that they required. Well, SMG, kind of AR, you know, putting General in wasn't really making much sense because he just doesn't run the role that iLLeY runs. He's more of a main. But putting any player really that could play the iLLeY type role, like, I'm sure they were going to be pretty damn good. And Prolute also had the comms, and, you know, his personality was kind of aligned with iLLeY, and it worked very well for them briefly last season. But at the end of Prolute's tenure on the team, it wasn't looking so good again, and Prolute's always been a kind of solid challenger player, but he's always had good connections with the pros, always been able to get on good teams, and he's had good results in challenges, maybe not because he's a stunning, standout, individual, talented player, but maybe more so because, you know, he gets good teams, and he's a good teammate, and he has things of this nature. Maybe though when you get up to the Pro League, does that really cut it anymore if you're not teaming with the most talented players in the game, as he basically was on OpTic Gaming on OpTic Texas last season? So in reply to Parasite's kind of comments there, Prolute tweets this out, which which I just think is pretty hilarious. So we've got Parasite, 49 rating, SMG, West Coast, cloud emoji. These are his numbers. So I mean, yeah, what do you guys think about this? This is the way that Prolute's going to clap back to Parasite here, saying that Parasite's basically a cloud for his perspective. And it's definitely a pretty spicy take from Parasite, right? It's got to be said. I do enjoy the spicy takes being had here in the league. It would be boring if the pundits and everything just never said anything interesting at all, and he reckons pretty much that Prolute just isn't a good enough player to be in the Pro League right now, and the numbers don't exactly, you know, go too far against his opinion. Now, in fairness, Prolute was, as I say, like, such a great player for this OpTic team, especially at the start of when he was on that roster last season, made some great plays. You guys might even remember this map of Search and Destroy, where he's at this point 8-1, 9-1, then I believe goes 10-1 after he clutches this 1v1 against Awakening. And I mean, yeah, that was like, okay, wow, is this team even better with Prolute than they are with iLLeY? Whereas the reality is, when you look at the numbers at the end of last season, didn't really play out like that. I mean, okay, if this actually wants to load again, this over at the Breaking Point site, this is last season's numbers, and if we scroll down here to look at the overall numbers, of course, he's not really there to deliver crazy results. But you know, Prolute's a 0.93 in hardpoint, 0.97 in search, and 0.97 as well in control over 11 maps, 13 maps, 17 maps. He played a fair few series, did a solid job, but nothing necessarily spectacular. And then this is this season's Vegas Legion so far on, if it wants to load again, for some reason it's refreshing, but here we go. The numbers are worse this season, right? Over 7 hardpoint maps, he's got a 0.8. Over, you know, 5 Search and Destroy maps, he's got a 0.74. Control a 0.84 over 4 maps. So, I mean, yeah, and engagement numbers as well, not looking so good. Hardpoint time, he's got a fair bit of that. So, you know, obviously counters out to a little bit. First blood rate isn't very good either. So, yeah, what do you guys think about this? Is he right to kind of clap back at Parasite? Because if he can prove Parasite wrong and turn up at the major, I think that's fair enough. But look, if we came into the season, what was I saying to you guys about the worst SMG duos in the game? I mean, I was saying that TJ and Prolute is probably the weakest SMG duo in the league, to be perfectly honest. They rely heavily on an AR dominant meta, which I believe they kind of still have, so they're probably looking okay for now. And at the London team as well, I was kind of questioning their SMG duo, but it seems has been turning up phenomenally so far, whereas we haven't really seen any of that from Prolute or TJ, and they need Temp and Clay to kind of carry if this team wants to succeed. And I don't really think it's an easy thing for Parasite to say, because Parasite's defended Prolute in the past, even said this back in June this year: don't Prolute shame, OpTic lost to the same team with iLLeY, and you guys were praising Prolute days ago. GG's and keep it pushing, don't be an NPC. So, you know, and even, yeah, this guy says holding him accountable for the 0.7 he dropped is fair. So, you know, Parasite was defending him back in June and being like, well, look, you know, this team was not too dissimilar with iLLeY as they were with Prolute. So it's not like Parasite hasn't defended him in the past and has always been a massive Prolute hater, but you know, in this case, maybe he does make a fair point, and I think that I wouldn't be surprised to see relatively soon some sort of roster change happen within Vegas. I'm honestly surprised they didn't like make some different moves at the start of the season, to be honest. Like, look, obviously OpTic, when Prolute left, they were talking about Prolute's are great teammates, perfect guy to pick up. I thought maybe he would go to Florida actually for a time. I thought maybe there was a possibility there. Even towards the end of last season, there was a question whether a team would pick Prolute up off the OpTic bench, but they wanted to keep him there just in case anything went wrong with their starting team. But now you're seeing Vegas pick him up and thinking, well, it almost feels like only a matter of time until they decide to make some sort of change to their SMG line where Prolute and or TJ might find themselves out. And probably Prolute's more than likely the one to get dropped just because, you know, TJ's got good relationships with Donny Temp especially, that Prolute doesn't maybe quite have. So yeah, in tweeting your thoughts, basically like Parasite's kind of saying, you know what, a roster change might be necessary there within that Vegas Legion camp. But yeah, I think it's just a topic that isn't really discussed about much, right? People talk about players not feeling comfortable in this, but you know, Parasite's like, he's a solid player, but he's just not anything special. And for a Pro League caliber level kind of ability, he's just not really got the talent there. And it's pretty spicy. But yeah, I guess Parasite isn't maybe going to pick Prolute up to his challengers team if they require a change anytime soon. And pretty cool for Parasite, he's actually flying out to Raleigh, it seems, to see his team and coach his team in person for the play and obviously see friends and stuff. So pretty good stuff. But nonetheless, a pretty spicy topic of the day as well. It would have been spicy, but it was especially spicy with Prolute's kind of clown reply that I'll bring up on screen again just because it's just pretty funny, to be honest. Now, let's dive into a couple of things before we close out the video. Firstly, this question for you guys. Who do you reckon is dropping the first 40 bomb of the season? There are 3 players right now that have got to 39. Hydra has hit it in Control. I believe that one of the others has, maybe both of the others, hit it in Respawn, in a Hardpoint, sorry. But anyway, Hydra, Bracken, and Scrubby all have got to 39. Someone's going to get to 40, but who's it going to be? Now, this I thought was pretty funny from Parasite here. He drops the Doug said to Martin, I meant kills, he says. And then, you know, Parasite's like, what do you mean? 40 bomb plants is not happening. So yeah, this is the stat that Doug tends to top out on, the bomb plants. And yeah, Doug's trying to find a way to get 40 bomb plants in 11 rounds of Search and Destroy, even when he's on defense of 5 or 6 of those times. But don't count this guy out just yet of making it somehow that possibly happen. But very much interested your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.